Shalom, everyone. Shalom. I want to welcome everyone to King James Bible University Precept Mastery. And today we're going to be going through the book of Romans as we normally do every week. And I do want to give you guys a little bit of background information also where Paul gets some of his other information from and based on what he does and people he like to quote. So as we're going to be going through this, and same as we do in the back, once I finish here, we're going to back, and then from there, I can give you all the precepts that you need for your books. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to switch over, and we're going to look at some of this here, and just show you some of what Paul is doing as he's want you to really see what you need to focus on. Because a lot of us, let me adjust this a little bit, 1 second. A lot of us, what Paul is always telling us is that we need to have more faith. Have more faith. And I'm going to show you why Paul is saying that and show you how this is actually going through. So I want to just show you a couple of places to where we can see what's going on here. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to take this here. I'm going to take it back just to give you some background information on Paul. And you can see what Paul is doing. And we're going to look at this one as well as we'll see what he does here. You're going to see one of the same identical things. We're going to look at Acts chapter 13. Acts 13 in verse 41. Just to show you a little bit how Paul, many people say Paul was Paul taught against Christ. And you're going to see how Paul is well versed in the Bible, as well as he spoke nothing but the Bible. So we'll see here in verse 41. And one of the reasons I'm doing this, because many people always keep saying, and I get emails here and there and every now and then now, where people say, oh no, Paul was a deceiver, Paul was, and it become kind of a nuisance in a way. And it says, remember ye despisers, and wonder and perish, for I work a work in your days, a work which ye shall no wise believe, though man declared it unto you. And I'm going to show you the flip side to this, where Paul got this from, is what I'm going to do, just because this can kind of shut down a lot of different things. We're going to look at Habakkuk chapter 5. And it says, remember, ye among the heathens. He's saying the same thing, because over here, Paul calling them despisers. Habakkuk just calls them straight out heathens. He says, in regard and wonder marvelously, for I work a work in your days. I work a work in your days. He's saying the same thing. Which ye will not believe, though it be told you, though a man declared it unto you. Saying the same thing. This is one of the reasons how you can validate Paul. But this shows you how people say they pray to God and God revealed Paul was this person. And he was this despiser. And it really becomes real careful when you see people tell you that. You need to make sure you stay far away from those type of people who teach those doctrines. You see it again in Romans chapter 1 and verse 17. Just to keep people down when people start telling you, oh no, Paul is this, Paul is this. This is just one place. I'm just showing you where he quoted a lot of stuff really from Habakkuk, but he did it in a lot of other places. But I'm just going to focus on one because he did quite a bit here. And we're going to look at that one there. And it's the, excuse me, it says, for therein is righteousness of God revealed from faith to faith, which is the basis of what Paul is trying to impart into us. As it is written, the just shall live by faith. That's the key on what Paul is trying to push. That is the key what Paul is trying to push. But I want to show you something. Let's see where Paul got this from. Let's see where Paul got this from. We're going to look at Habakkuk chapter 2, but we're going to go down to verse 4. And my mouse want to act up. It says, remember, his soul which is lifted up is not right in him, but the just shall live by his faith. All clear as day. Clear as day. But this is what Paul pulling this stuff from. And he puts it in his own way. Same as a person sang a song, and then they sing somebody else's song, and then they put their own flavor on it. Pretty much what Paul does. The same you'll see here in Galatians. Paul quotes this same thing again. In Galatians chapter 3, we look at verse 11. And he quotes the same thing. And he just says another way. He says, but that no man is justified by the law in the sight of God. It is evident for the just, but the just should live by faith. Shall live by faith. So again, we see this is happening again. And you have this here where you have 3 and 4 in Habakkuk 2 and 3. And we'll take this here. And this is just for some other naysayers just saying that Paul is a deceiver. And I shouldn't have to keep defending Paul, because Paul is showing you clearly that he knows exactly what he's talking about. We're going to look at Hebrews. And we're going to look at chapter 10. We're going to move over to verse 37. And this is something literally we shouldn't even have to be doing. But just to let people know, and to where other people can turn you from Paul. Excuse me. So it says in Habakkuk chapter 2, verse 3 and 4, it says, for the vision is yet for an appointed time, but at the end it shall speak and not lie. Though it tarry, wait for it, because it will surely come. It will not tarry. Remember, his soul which is lifted up is not upright in him, but the just shall live by faith. That's what he's saying. So we're going to look at these two. We're going to see Paul saying the same thing. It says, for yet a little while, and he that shall come will come. Same thing he's saying over here. And will not tarry. Now that the just should live by faith, but if any man draw back, my soul shall have no pleasure in him. So you see here what's going on here. And the reason why people do these things against Paul, because Paul speaks hardcore law. And Paul tells you this when he gets into Romans chapter 7, verse 1. He says, know ye not, brethren. And this is specific. For I speak to them that know the law. So hopefully that, the people keep sending emails here and there talking about Paul is a deceiver and Paul is this and Paul is that. I can go in pretty much every book in the Bible and show you where Paul is pulling his quotes from. And Paul has done this numerous times, as I said before. Paul really do not speak his own words. So hopefully, you came over and I said I will show it to you. And hopefully this puts some type of ease to you to where you can go check it. Check out Paul and see where Paul is getting this information from. So if Paul is a deceiver, then every prophet that he's quoting from is a deceiver as well. So this is why we should make sure when people tell us things such as that, we need to watch who's telling us this and are they well versed in Scripture. So the whole understanding with Romans is trying to impart faith into each and every person based over with the letter to Rome. And we're going to pick that back up and we're going to sit there and see what happened here. And we left off at 5 and we didn't go through 5. And we need to look at this part. So it says in verse 5, and we're going to get into some deeper doctrine on what's going on here. And the same thing is most people don't have to worry about what, if you're worrying about the notes, we're going to do the notes in the back as normal. And it says, one man esteemeth one day above another, another esteem every day alike. Let every man be fully persuaded. Fully persuaded. So this is the focus on what Paul is saying. Every man must be persuaded in his own mind. And this has a lot of things to do with what's going on today, as well as, you see, went on back then. One man will esteem. And when we look at esteem, we want to know what it's talking about, because they're going to esteem, they're going to hold something superior over something else. So they esteem, they hold it superior, as a man will be weak in the faith, as you can see with his dispensations, which it was talking about earlier when you look at verse 1. Because in verse 1 it tells you, it says, but not to doubtful dispensations, vain babblings. This is what people are going to do. They're going to waver back and forth, not sure what they're going to hold to. One day above another. And this is what's one of the problems. This is a serious problem that's going on. And this is nothing to laugh at, nothing to sneeze at, nothing to really even joke about. Because one man will esteem in holding Sunday over the Sabbath day. One man will hold that day over the other day. And we know the Spirit of God said something. And we need to look at even something else later, which I'm going to show it to you. But we're going to look at some of this here. But I want to take you over here to what you do contrary. And he's telling you, giving you a warning, what you should not do. And we're going to go to Exodus chapter 20. We're going to look at verse 8. Exodus 20 and verse 8. That text right here, where Moses is speaking and it's coming from God, he says, remember the Sabbath day to keep it holy. And we're going to see a gentleman later. He's going to really dissect this a backwards way, and we're going to look at that also. And the problem here is, he's not saying this because you need to make sure that you're doing this. But this over here is telling you clearly he shouldn't have to do this. So this here, where they go into these doctrines, and actually, let me before I do that, let me go here. Before I go there, let's go here. Just want to show it to you. We're going to look at Timothy chapter 1. We're going to pick it up at verse 9. And I'm doing that for a reason. And we're going to go to Deuteronomy over here. We're going to look at Deuteronomy chapter 10. So, and that's already highlighted. So we want to look at this as a whole to really understand what's going on. Because one man going to esteem one day above another. So I want to make sure we see this and we understand what's getting ready to happen. Now here, when we look at this one here, he's saying, remember the Sabbath day and keep it holy. But he's telling this to a bunch of people at the time. He's telling a bunch of people who just came out of captivity, who is unruly, because it's a mixed congregation went out. They unruly, they stiff-necked and everything else. And he's telling them something, what not to do. It's the same thing as you tell your children what not to do. But the thing is this. This here, they'll say, as you go through Exodus chapter 20, is the law. No, as I keep telling people all the time, and as we teach over here, it's two sets of laws in the Bible. It's impossible for the Bible to have one law for both sides, meaning you have a law for flesh and a law for spirit. If both of them had the same identical law, it wouldn't make no sense. This is what I'm saying. Many of us say, well, it's one law. Yeah, it's one law. But it's one law to the spirit. But the problem is, most people don't know it's a law to flesh. It's one law over there and there's one law over here. So when he's saying, remember the Sabbath day, he's telling you the law of flesh. Because he's telling you that this, and this is why he says that. In 1 Timothy chapter 1 and verse 9, I want to invite you there and we're going to look at that. 1 Timothy chapter 1 and verse 9, Paul quotes this. It says, knowing this, that the law is not made for a righteous man. This was not made for a righteous person at all. That's the problem. But people teach, when you want to see the law, they keep running you to Exodus chapter 20, and they're giving you the law of flesh. Hopefully we starting to understand where this is all spawned from. If it's from the law of flesh, the law is not made for a righteous man. Not Exodus chapter 20, and you start going down. Because he's telling you a lot of things that you should not be doing. And he says, but for the lawless, the disobedient, the ungodly, for the sinners, for the unholy, for the profane, for murderers of fathers and murderers of mothers, manslayers, whoremongers, of them that defile themselves with mankind, for man-stealers and liars, perjured persons, and if there be any other thing that is contrary to sound doctrine. This over here in Exodus was not made for a righteous man. That's why he's saying, remember the Sabbath day. That's the point. On top of that is this. And the reason he's saying that, because if we know this isn't that, now it's a covenant that's between you and God, and it's a requirement between that, which is another law, meaning this, which what we have over here, Deuteronomy chapter 10, verse 12. It says, now Israel. You see, he's not saying the sons of Jacob. You see, he's not saying the 12 tribes. You see, he's not individualizing flesh, because that's ye sons of Jacob. But you see, he's not doing that to them. He's saying this is to Israel. because we had to have faith in the word, and that's why it says, not as though the word of God has taken none effect. For they are not all Israel, which are of Israel. That's why he's saying that's why all this stuff started coming into play. Because this is to Israel, not to the sons of Jacob, not according to the flesh. Let's go one more place here, so we won't get all this mixed up. I want to go one more place here to where we won't get mixed up. Because we don't want nobody to walk away from here mixed up. We're going to go to Genesis chapter 49. And we're going to see here again. It says this. I'm going to do this one. I do this one in red. It says, Jacob called unto his sons and said, gather yourselves together that I may tell you which shall befall on you in the last days. These things going to come to pass on you guys in the last days. So he says this. The same as what the requirement is. He says, gather yourselves together, you sons of Jacob, all my sons of the flesh. He wants all these people of the flesh together. He says, and hearken unto Israel, your father. You see, so the focus is Israel. Israel is spirit. And them that worship him must worship him in spirit and in truth. So, you remember the Sabbath day. He shouldn't have to tell you this at all. Because if you, over here, and when you look back now, when you look at Deuteronomy, it says, and now Israel, what do the Spirit of thy God require of thee? But to desire the Spirit of thy God, to walk in all his ways, to love him, and to serve the Spirit of thy God with all their heart and all their soul. So if you do this, you're going to remember the Sabbath day automatically. It's nothing you have to do. You already know to keep that day holy. It's not complex. It's not hard at all, because you know it. And that's why he says, even when you look at Leviticus, and we'll look at Leviticus real quick. Leviticus chapter 19 and verse 18. And that's highlighted. This is, thou shalt not avenge nor bear any grudge against the children of thy people. He's talking about his people. But thou shalt love thy neighbor as thyself. I am the Spirit of God. You see how he's doing this? When he's saying this here, this is to the lawless. Remember the Sabbath day, because he shouldn't have to say that. That shouldn't have to be said. What's worse than this, as he even said this, you see right there, that is a full stop thought. It's a period there. Now watch what he does to even go more into it, because if you love your Lord thy God with all your heart, all your mind, all your soul, he wouldn't do this, because it says what required. You desire him. Whatever his desire is your desire. You shouldn't have this problem. So let's look at something. Let's watch what he does here. He goes into verse 9. We sit there and see something. It says, he's going to explain it. See, this is where it gets down to the nitty gritty, and he shouldn't have to do this. He says, 6 days shall thou labor and do all thy work. He went down to start breaking it down so we can see that the law was not made for a righteous man. Not here. He has to literally break this down to you. You see where he's saying to love your Lord thy God with all your heart, all your mind, all your soul, and you love your neighbor as you love thyself. You see, he said those, and if you look at it real good, he don't even get into a whole lot of crazy stuff. At all. But here in Exodus chapter 20, he goes into detail because it's a problem. I'll show you something. Verse 10. It gets worse. It says, But the seventh day. So now he's saying, okay, you got to call all these days and you got to remember this. So since you got to remember this, this is why I'm going to call this day. I'm not going to name no other day. This is stiff neck and hard head that we be. So he didn't name no other day for that reason. You got 6 days to the Sabbath, 5 days to the Sabbath, 4 days to the Sabbath, 3 days to. You ain't naming no other day. Because he only named one day so you can remember it. This is why you sit there. You can see he's showing us. This is how literally minute he has to get here to let us know, okay, no, I'm not going to name no other day because it's going to confuse them. So I'm going to name one day. And I'm going to explain to them how you get to that day. This is what he's doing. This is showing you what we have failed. He says, but 7 days. He said, do all that work. But the seventh day is the Sabbath. So he named it. This is what's so bad about it. He named the day. He said, it's the Sabbath of the Spirit of thy God. In it, now he's going to explain to you, thou shalt not do any work, nor thy son, nor thy daughter, nor thy maidservant, nor thy manservant, nor thy maidservant, nor thy cattle, nor thy stranger that is within thy gates. So the same thing is what I'm telling you here. When we see something, I want to play something for this guy here. And you got to pay real close attention, but this is why it says, if it's possible, they can deceive even the very elect. So I'm going to show you this.
Understand that one of the signs of the covenant that God had with Israel in the Old Testament was the Sabbath day. Now, I grew up in the Baptist church, and a very traditional Baptist church at that, and I grew up going to Sunday school and vacation Bible school. And when I went to vacation Bible school and Sunday school, they taught me about the Sabbath day. And there was a great debate going on at that time as to what day was the real day to worship God. That debate continues to this day and has existed all the way back to the Old Testament theology as to what is the right day to worship God. In spite of the fact that the New Testament tells us not to give respect of days, we're still debating over what day we ought to worship. I had run into some good friends as a young man that were seven-day Adventists, and I still have a lot of friends who worship the Lord on Saturday, which technically is the Sabbath day. And there was a great deal of debate going on with them as to what was the right day to worship God. I have absolutely no problem with anybody who chooses to go to church on Saturday. I have no problem with that. I would never debate that. I would never argue about it. I can pass by the Seventh-day Adventist church and wave and respect and appreciate their right to worship on Saturday, probably because I also worship on Saturday. Yeah, I do. I hope that does not exempt me from an opportunity to serve as your pastor, but I worship on Saturday. I always, ever since I've been saved, I've worshiped on Saturday and Friday and Thursday, and generally on Wednesday too, and Tuesday and Monday as well, and Sunday also. I worship on Sunday. I don't have to come to a building to be in worship. I worship the Lord wherever I am and wherever I go. But there's a great deal of debate about it, and I can remember that my Sunday school teacher took me to the New Testament and showed me a scripture in the book of Acts that it said on the first day of the week they came together in the book of Acts, and she did that to make me understand that she said that the New Testament Sabbath was Sunday, and that it was the New Testament Sabbath because it was a new beginning, and that Christ rose from the dead on the third day, and from the New Testament forward we should worship on Sunday. And while I respect that reasoning and that philosophy, I certainly fall short of making a doctrine out of that, because I think that there is a deeper revelation. There's a deeper revelation. If you'll bear with me a few minutes, I'm going to pull a couple of threads and share some things with you that I think will be helpful to you. First of all, you must remember that it was on the seventh day in the book of Genesis that God ceased from his labor and entered into rest. He stopped working and entered into his rest in the book of Genesis. And the Bible says in the book of Exodus, there is no mention of the Sabbath day from the book of Genesis to the book of Exodus when God gives the Ten Commandments. And when he gives the Ten Commandments in the book of Exodus, he says, remember the Sabbath day, which looks back at the book of Genesis. And then he says the word to, which looks forward to the future. Remember the Sabbath day, backwards, to keep it holy unto the Lord.
So you can see a couple of things here. A couple of things I want you to really pay attention to. Is one, he's recognizing the Sabbath day. But if you listen to the way he's saying it, he's deceiving you 100%. And it has more to that he did. And the same thing as he said, he don't have a problem with people worshiping on the Sabbath day. And he's talking about this new beginning and all this stuff. And the same thing is, I don't have a problem with people worshiping on Sunday, but at least people who worship on Sunday should have the opportunity to know what the truth is. That's the key. And then if they choose to worship on Sunday, so be it. They will go worship on Sunday. I just want them to have the opportunity to see what's going on. That's all we want them to see. That's all we want them to understand and get the logistics of what's going on here. So the problem becomes is with this is he's telling you what's going on. And he's talking about, and he's using to, and he keeps talking about to move forward. And he's saying to move forward, to look at these things. But most people don't know what to actually mean, or the to, because he's saying the same thing here. Because he's holding this to keep, which he wants you to look forward and not to look back. But we have to remember a couple of things, what's going on. He is really slick at what he's doing. Two, he's going to tell you what stuff means, but if you go look at the video he actually did, he never shows you, he never cracks the book open. He's going to, same as he said, the philosophy. He's holding on to that. And he's going to get a lot of people with that. He's going to get a lot of people tied up into this doctrine. Because two, meaning one thing. This right here, I'm going to unhighlight. Because I just want you guys to pay attention to that right there. And the reason why I'm hearing him say that, and this is where he's trying to focus you in on. Two. And two, he's really, I don't know, he's fooling people on this. But two is what you can see as a respected result that corresponds with every respect to be the invasion of an idea or certain that it should or should not be maintained. That's all two actually mean. Even though it's just two words, two letters, it can be really complex. But it's going to either have unexpected results. And it's not saying to move forward from the Sabbath day, because the main thing is, then God said he don't change and he don't alter nothing. So we got a problem there, which he's saying is one way. Then he's also saying, then Yahweh and them had it mixed up, because all he taught on was the Sabbath day. He taught on Sabbath day, but as he going around, he'll teach. But he'll go into those synagogues on the Sabbath day. He taught on the Sabbath day as well as the others. But he is very good at what he does. He's an orator, where a lot of people, you can see a lot of people, they can believe that, but he just needs to stick his fangs a little bit deeper down into it. even though he admits out of his own mouth that the Sabbath day is the correct day. But he's saying he's looking at a new beginning. He's looking at going to the high place. But he's being well paid for what he's doing here. So he's giving you a mixed understanding, a mixed truth, a mixed doctrine. So he'll tell you this to make you see a couple of things. To worship God daily, because he kept you seen how you were doing it. He'd say, you go to this day, I worship also on the Sabbath day. People clapping, I worship on Friday, I worship on Thursday. And he kept going back, and people were loving that. Now, that's the split tongue doctrine he's pushing. Now, you to always worship, to reverence God daily, all the time. But God is telling you particularly, remember the Sabbath day and keep it holy. You're going to work all week, and you keep me on your mind, because I'm going to guide you on where you need to go. So you keep me on your mind. This is all God is saying. And he's saying, but particularly on the Sabbath day, you keep that holy. You keep that for me. That's all he's saying. Not you do all these things. So the same thing is, do we have to do what we're doing today? No. No, it's just giving you information to help you to really dissect what's going on. But he's saying keep that Sabbath day holy. And the main part is, what I want you to see here, we want to look at verse 11. We're going to look at verse 11 to see something. It says, for in 6 days, the Spirit of God made heaven and earth. He put in work for 6 days, including all that in them is. He's putting in work. And rested the seventh day. Wherefore the Spirit of God blessed the Sabbath day and hallowed it. He's telling you right up front what he did. And I'm going to show you the proof that he's just saying the same thing. I'm going to show you the proof he's saying the same thing. Let's look at this here, and we're going to look at Genesis chapter 2. We're going to pick it up at verse 2. It says, on the seventh day, God ended his work which he had made. He rested on the seventh day from all his work which he had made. On top of that, verse 3, he goes into detail. He says, and God blessed the seventh day and sanctified it, because in it he had rested from all the work which God created and made. He's telling you the same thing what he did over here that he spoke about in Exodus. So he's saying he's looking at a new beginning. And all the people is listening to this sick tongue guy. And you have a lot of people who's going to fall to that based on whatever they belief is. And this is why we have the problem. Because they don't have the opportunity, because people are going to get caught up in the cliches and they're going to think that they have something that's true over there, and it's not. Because God's saying he sanctified that, and he said you to keep it holy. And he's telling you that for a reason. In fact, we're gonna sit there and see this. And you'll see why he even says what he says. You'll see why he's saying exactly what he's saying. So it says, for I am the Spirit of God that brought you up out of the land of bondage, out of the house of bondage, to be your God. Ye should therefore be holy, for I am holy. This is clear understanding on why he's saying to do this. So he said we do something on the Sabbath day, the only day he named. And we have people saying, no, we need a new beginning. We need a new beginning. And one of the main reasons why, because he made us in the image of God, male and female. But we have people will esteem one thing over another. We esteeming things one over another. And this is where we constantly slip up at, and we let these things happen. These things happen to us. We're esteeming Sunday over the Sabbath day, over God's day. We let this happen. And now we're glorifying other things. That's why it's telling that. We're going to esteem something over something else. We're esteeming one day over another. And this is our biggest problem that we're going to constantly run into, because he told us this from the beginning. This was told to us from the beginning in Romans. And you'll see this here when we look at what Paul wrote here and starting at 21. We're going to pull that text there. And it says, because that when they knew God, they glorified him not as God, saying God don't carry no weight. See, people can say whatever they want to say. They can say, well, no, I hold God as the most important thing in my life. Okay, but you worship on Sunday. Your main day you hold for is Sunday. See, it's nothing at that point you can change, because they'll sit there and say, oh no, the New Testament, he made a new covenant. Show it to me. Because he said he don't change. He said, I will not alter nothing. So if these things is not altered, if these things is not changed, even though you knew God, you glorified him not as God. Meaning that whatever God said, you took it upon yourself to change it. Or you took it upon yourself to hold to what someone else said. And they didn't show you anything. They didn't show you that God don't change. They didn't show you that God don't change his covenant. They didn't show you none of this. But you took what this person said as law, and you hold to that day. And you knew God, but you glorified him not as God. Neither were thankful that he gave you this information. Not even thankful for this. We esteeming Sunday over the Sabbath day. Sunday, God didn't name Sunday. Sunday was just the first day of the week. Tuesday was just the second day of the week. Wednesday was the third day of the week. Thursday was the fourth day of the week. I'm telling you, we just keep going. We keep going. Sabbath day is the main one he named. So when you get to Friday, it's the 6th. You got the 6th day of the week. And then Sabbath day is the 7th day, the day of rest. He named it. He didn't name no other day. He named that one. And we wasn't even thankful. But became vain in their imaginations, and their foolish hearts were darkened. This is what we did. Esteeming one day above another. And not that, but you esteem anything over God's day. I'm telling you, we do it like clockwork. We do this like it's no tomorrow. And this is part of the issue right here. Because the first thing people are going to hold them for is that. Professing themselves to be wise, they became fools. People have a problem when you sit there and say that right here, and it's right here in the Bible. They profess to be wise, but they became fools. Oh, you shouldn't be sent. Okay, then you have a problem because God has this in his Bible. And people who hold that day as the most important day, and they say that man is wise beyond his years. And the Bible says he became fools. They'll hold that day as something that's really important. And they were not thankful. And they glorified him not as God. Because now you look to him as if he's a God. This is a problem. So it says, as Paul said, he's making sure this is clear. He says, and change the glory of an uncorruptible God. It's not changing anything. Into an image like to a corruptible man. He can tell you anything, and we believe it. All based on a day. Because if anybody worshiping on a Sunday, and that is their day, that fits them all together. And I promise you, they will tell you that's not them. No. Oh no, we don't do that. No. Oh no, that's not us. I'm a New Testament believer. You change the incorruptible God into an image made like a corruptible man. Not even that. You change into birds and four-footed beasts and creeping things. We'll do this with no problem. We do these things and think nothing about it. So we'll sit there and we esteeming things a whole nother way. And we'll hold something that is vain over something that's holy. And people don't think so. In fact, we're going to look at something here. Something that they took out the Bible. They said it's not God expired. They took it out the Bible for you. And we're going to look at this in Wisdom of Solomon, and we're going to look at chapter 2. Pick it up at verse 10. Wisdom of Solomon, chapter 2, we're going to look at verse 10. And it said this. It says, let us oppress the poor, righteous man. Let us not spare the widow, nor reverence the ancient gray hairs of the age. Interesting, isn't it? See, because this gets real serious on how this actually plays out. Because you esteem one day over the other. And when you're not sparing, you're going to oppress them. Meaning you're going to hold them guilty. When they don't pay money into you, you're going to hold them guilty. When they're not doing what you tell them to do, they're going to hold you guilty for that. And obedient to God's word. They can't show it to you. They're going to show you the Malachi 3 and 8 and everything else. Will a man rob God? This is what happens. And they say, let us suppress the poor, righteous man. And that's what they do. They're going to oppress you in any kind of way, shape, form, or fashion that they can. Let us spare not the widow, nor reverence the ancient, the elders, gray hairs of the age. In fact, it says, let our strength be the law of justice, for that which is feeble is found to be nothing worth. Wow. That's a bold statement. They gonna create their own laws. And this is why their strength is mainly always in numbers. Why did that even be said? You have more than 2 billion Christians today. More than 2 billion. And many of them, they got them through oppressing them. When they started, even when they came over to this world, this country, they used to hold things over people and make you say that you're going to worship him. If you didn't, they killed you. They done took down many of that information down today to where you can't really get a hold to it. But this is how they did it. Either you were going to worship their God or you died. And they used to be proud about that. But now you don't see them up that much no more. Because they moving that, because they trying to change and they being like a chameleon. They want to look real humble in what they do. But there is a large number of Sunday churchgoers. And the Sabbath day is not worth nothing to them. It's not worth nothing. And this is how they see this. In fact, as we go down, get down to verse 12, it says, therefore, let us lay wait for the righteous, because he is not for our turn. He is clean, contrary to our doings. You see what he's saying? 100% contrary to what they believe. This is why I said, all we want to do is let them know what the truth is. They want to worship it, they worship it. They want to hold to it, let them hold to it. And what they do is says, he upbraideth us with our offendings the law, and objecteth to our infamy the transgressions of our education. I'm telling you, got an issue with it. They'll take people to catapult this forward into this century here. It's the same thing. What they do, they offend it, because their infamy, which is talking about what we do, we object their honor and shame. See, they want you to honor their knowledge. They want you to honor what they say. They want you to honor everything that they do or what they tell you. They want you to take it as a truth. I don't care how we look at this. They want you to take that as a 100% truth, because it's coming out of their mouth. They'll sit there, no, you got that wrong. Let me tell you what this is. No, that's out of context. That's one of the famous things they like to say. It's out of context. All you gotta do is tell them what's in context. Explain me what's in context. Go through a verse and show me what's in context. And then they're going to get confused. And as soon as they try to tell you what they say, no, I want you to go through this verse. Show me what's in context. Show me how that works. No, you don't. You got to no, no. I don't need you to tell me anything. Let's go to this book. Show me how to keep something in context. I want you to show me that. That's what's going to get, well, all the confusion is going to come up at. Because they said something, but now they can't back it up. And the main thing is, they want you to understand their laws, the way that they do things. And they're going to hold all yours contrary to them, so yours is nothing. Yours is absolutely nothing. It says this when we get down to verse 13. In verse 13, why keep doing that? In verse 13 it says, he professes to have the knowledge of God, including he calleth himself the child of the Creator. The ones who have their own laws, their own everything. I'm talking, it almost becomes dumbfounded because you see people today where they'll tell you out of their own mouth, they're a child of God, they eat everything contrary to what God's desires are. They do everything contrary to what God's desires are. All their thoughts is contrary to whatever God's are. But they'll tell you every time they are a child of the Creator. They'll tell you this. And they'll profess it. The problem is this. See, when you sitting there saying you're a child of God, you saying you one of the fruits of God. You one of the fruits of the Creator. You are one of those. That's what you're saying. And if you are this evil-minded, wicked-thinking person, on everything that is wicked to do people wrong, everything wicked to just do anything that is always continually evil, and then the first thing come out of your mouth is, I am a child of the Creator. But this is the problem that we have here. I'm going to put this one in red. I want you to see what's going on here. Because he's making a statement, but he wants you to figure out what's going on. Because he's saying he was made to reprove our thoughts. That was Christ. That's why he said he was made. That's why he's saying that. He sent his spirit to us, and that's what he's talking about. He was made to reprove our thoughts. And reprove is to condemn and correct our thoughts. But to us, you just got to remember he is talking about Christ. He is talking 100% about Christ. He is grievous unto us even to remember. Exactly the point. We don't even want to watch. Well, let's read this whole thing. It says, "For his life is not like other men's. His ways are of another fashion." He ain't like us. He don't do what we do. He don't do nothing, but we making ourselves to esteem of him, and we're gonna compare him a whole different way. Actually, let's look at this. I'm gonna put this one in red. Cause I'm gonna show you what this. But this is classic us. It says we are esteemed of him as counterfeits. I'm telling you, we esteemed of him as counterfeits. He abstained from our ways, comparing from filthiness. I know this is throwing rocks at all of us. This is throwing all the rocks at us because we always want to hold our ways higher. Oh, I'm doing this and I'm doing that, and yeah, won't tell you what, I'm gonna start doing these things another way. We are esteemed to him as counterfeits. We have appearance of being holy, but we're not holy. He pronounces the end of the just to be blessed and maketh his boast that God is his Father. But he gets better. He gets better. We're going to go down to verse 17. Verse 17, it says this. It says, let us see if his words be true. Now, you tell me we don't do this. See, when somebody tell me we don't do this, I'm going to show you how much we're not true, we're not honest with ourselves. Because soon as he said this, as soon as somebody tell you something that is true, soon as someone sit there and it's contrary to what you believe or what you hold into, this is what happens. It's not sometime, every time. It says this. It says, let us see if his words be true. Let us prove him. Let us test him. We're going to test him. What shall happen in the end of him? Because his ways are not your ways. So we want to see what he's all about. See, this is what goes on. This is why you even see people, they'll come in and sit there and they'll try to force you to do something contrary. They'll force you to. This even one time, this one pastor, he was an elder of a church, and he was trying to get this kid to come back. The kid, he was a teenager. No, I think he was grown at the time. And a friend of mine, it's his son, and they told him in there to try to scare him up, to get him to come back in there. He said, well, I'll tell you what, we're going to stop praying for you because you don't come to this church. Trying to sit there to say that they're better. And when they stop praying, things going to happen. And they is 100% wrong about their doctrine, 100% wrong about their beliefs, 100% wrong about who they hold as God, 100% wrong on everything they do. But they had to fix it and made that kid feel pretty bad about what happened. But they said, let us prove him and what shall happen to him. And you see this when we look at verse 18. It says this. It says, for providing the just man be the Son of God. So if he's the Son of God, he will help him. We're going to put him through some hell just to see if he's the Son of God. Because he's not doing what we do. He don't live the way we live. He don't say the things we say. He don't cheat the way we cheat. But we're going to put him through some hell. We're going to prove him to see what his end going to be. Because he is esteeming the Sabbath day over Sunday. So we need to check him out. What's happening? And it says, and deliver him from the hand of his enemies. The ones who saying it is the enemy. We're going to prove him. And once he do that, we're going to see what he's going to be all about. And you see this here. Let us examine him with despitefulness. We're going to check him out. We're going to do despitefulness, including torture. We're going to do these things to him. But they saying the hand of his enemies. They're the enemies. And they don't even know it. But that shows you how a corrupt mind would think. And delivering him from the hands of his enemies. And they are the enemy. And it's talking about, we're going to examine with despitefulness and torture, that we may know his meekness and prove his patience. People sit there and don't think that this happened. You have people going through this right now as we speak. Right now as we speak. In fact, let's go down to verse 20. It says, "Let us condemn him with a shameful death. For by his own saying, he shall be respected." And you see right here, they're going to condemn him with a shameful death. So they're not out to just prove him one way. No, they out to try to kill him. They out to try to kill this man. So others in their own wickedness with their own blind. That's why I said they became blind with a foolish heart. Holding themselves higher than him because he was being different. He's different. So since he's different, they're going to do him in. In fact, let's look at a piece of text here. Let's look at a piece of text here. In Romans chapter 12. In Romans 12 and verse 3. It says, "For I say, though the grace was given unto me, to every man that is among you not to think of himself more highly than he ought to think." He ought to think, but think solely with a just mind, according to God have dealt to every man that measure of faith. So it's the same thing here. The same thing going on here. It says, "Let every man be fully persuaded in his own mind." And not to sit there to think himself highly above someone else and putting that day over God's. This is our problem. This is what our whole big issue is. In fact, just to build on that thought, we're going to look at Proverbs, and in Proverbs chapter 25, and we're going to pull that text out of there, and we're going to look at verse 6. Proverbs 25 and verse 6, and it says this. It says, "Put not forth thyself in the presence of the king, and stand not in the place of a great man." Why is this even there? Because many times you're going to esteem yourself above someone who you shouldn't even be trying to esteem yourself over. In fact, we look at this all together. It says, "What is better that it is that to be said unto thee, come up hither, than that thou shouldest be put lower in the presence of the prince, whom thy understanding hath seen." People will sit there and they seem different. He moves different. And some people will stand right before him as if their understanding and their ways is superior. They're going to esteem it above that. So that's why they figure the people on Sundays, they boast higher than the one on the Sabbath day. They'll stand before it, challenge it, say they don't know no better. It's a new beginning. All these things have changed up for them. And they will sit there and hold that on what they want to believe and what they will teach. So when we get to these things, that's why we have all these problems when we start dealing with doctrine. When we dealing with doctrine, that's where our problem comes in at. And we can't get around it. The reason why we can't get around it, because he's going to always push us back to doctrine. Actually, it's already highlighted. It says, thou shalt not wrestle judgment. Thou shalt not respect persons, neither take a gift, for a gift do blind the understanding of the wise and pervert the words of the righteous. But they want to see what that end is going to be. But we shouldn't be wrestling back and forth with doctrines and teachings. Once you can see, this is another problem where people have, where they sit there and they say, well, we're going to tell you what, we can go debate this issue and debate that. And as I say all the time, how are you going to debate something that's already proven in the Bible? If you have one understanding saying he said this, and we saying it's saying that, all we need to do is come and show you the precepts of that, and you can see which one is right and which one is wrong. But they want to debate the fact that their belief is right. So this becomes a problem. And when we run into these problems here, we got to watch what we're doing, because one man going to esteem something way higher than the other. This is why a lot of times you get with these certain groups and these certain places, they don't want you to go out and learn no other type of doctrine. They know, you go out there, you go over there and learn that, we done with you. Because right now, we're law. It says this, it says, keep thee far from false matters, and the innocent and righteous slay thou not. I will not justify the wicked. This is talking about Exodus 23 and verse 7. Stay away from them false matters. As I said, you have people who sit there, well, I'm going to go over here. They got this good part over here, and they got that good part over there. Oh, well, no, I don't believe that part that they do, but it's okay. The rest of us say, oh, okay. So they lying on this part and lying on that part, but you still cool with it. Yeah, they got 3 million members over there. Really interesting. Maybe they just want to hear smooth things. It says this, it says in verse 8, and thou shalt take no gift, for the gift blindeth the wise and pervert the words of the righteous. So you're just repeating what he just said. Repeating what he just said. So that's why we have to sit there and let every man be fully persuaded in his own mind. In fact, he said this, and same thing he's saying over there, but we're going to see the same thing here. Because he repeated this. And we're going to look at Romans chapter 2 in verse 1. It says, for that reason, thou art inexcusable. O man, whosoever thou art that teachest, for therein thou teachest another, thou condemnest thyself, For thou that teachest doeth the same things. They do it the same identical things. They're going to esteem something, and they're going to teach you how to hold something that's contrary to it. They're going to hold something that's completely contrary to it. In fact, as I said, that's why they want to prove it. And it says this, it says, but we are sure that the doctrines and teachings of God is according to the truth against them which commit such things, putting you through all this hell. It become inexcusable. People will sit there, no, you in this, you in a cult, you in this, you in a cult, you in this, you in a cult. They'll tell you all these crazy things. And the main part of it is, how is it when people can sit there and go directly to Bible and don't go nowhere else from the Bible, is all of a sudden in a cult? And we passing judgment. That's why I said they condemning themselves. They showing you they weak in Scripture. When they sitting there and they telling you up front, okay, you are into a cult. You esteeming, you doing this on this day? No, God doing a new thing. You now esteeming something that is ordained by God, and you esteeming something else over that. You condemning yourself. Tell you, thou condemnest thyself. In fact, to even build on that thought, we're going to look at Matthew 18 and 18. We're going to look at Matthew 18 and 18. Actually, it's highlighted. And it's showing you the same thing what we're going to look at. It says, verily I say unto you, whatsoever ye shall bind on earth shall be bound in heaven. Same thing. It don't change. So you holding Sunday for the day. You binding it here because you're doing it. You're going to be bound in heaven. But he's talking about you're going to be going from Sabbath to Sabbath in the kingdom. So it don't say from Sunday to Sunday. This is where we're going to start running into a whole lot of problems. Because the Sunday Lord going to be in another place. That is not fit, that a lot of people should want to go. That is not fit, that a lot of people want to go. That's why it's so important, as we keep sitting there telling people, every time what happens, these things continually go on. In fact, let's look at this. Look at this, what this says. And this is a question Paul asked. He says, and thinkest thou this, O man, that judgest them which do such things, including doest the same, that thou should escape the judgment of God? So just because you do those, and then let's just say you got it off. Let's say you say, dang, you get to heaven and you getting in judgment and you was off. Let's just say that. Let's say you get up there and the Most High say, you were worshiping on the Sunday and the worship day was the Sabbath day. Let's just say that happened. Well, I got it wrong. God, but everything's cool. You think you're going to escape the judgment of that? Because one, you're calling God a liar. They said, where have I told you was a liar? I told you I changed not. I told you I'm the same yesterday, today, and forever. I told you I would not change. You said I did. So one, you lied on me. You lied on me before all these people. Two, you had me taking up all this money. And I had nothing to do with that. Three, you're going around calling yourself a shepherd. Four, you put Bishop ahead of everything that I said I was going to give you, pastors according to my heart. Five, you done sit there and said, I came to everything and I had Christ in. A man said he only came to the house of the lost sheep of Israel. All these things, and he got more. Well, I got it wrong, Lord, but I was teaching. You think you're going to escape the judgment of God? I'll leave that for you to think about it. Do you think you're going to escape it? So, you think about that. All those what we just said, you think if you think you're going to escape it, you go ahead and you put that in your head and do whatever you think you need to do. Because I'm going to tell you, it's going to come out incorrect every time. It says, he regardeth the day, regardeth it unto the Creator. He that regardeth the day, regardeth it unto the Creator. It's telling you right up front. In fact, let me get it all on one page where we can see this all together. We're going to put 6 all together. We're going to put it all together. It says, he says, and he that regardeth not the day to the Creator, he doeth not regard it. He that eateth unto the Creator. He that learneth unto the Creator. He that giveth thanks, and he that eateth not to the Creator, he learneth not and giveth thanks. You tell me this ain't no game he playing here. He's sitting there, and we want to sit there, and people want to play this 100% game. We're going to look at Haggai chapter 1. Haggai chapter 1. Actually, it's already in verse 5. It's already highlighted. Haggai chapter 1, in verse 5, it says, now for that reason, thus saith the Spirit of God of hosts, consider your ways. Consider your way. You need to do a self-examination, a self-check. Because a lot of people think they're gaining doing these things on Sundays and all these things. They think they're getting over. And you're not doing a self-check. So people can sit there and say, well, what did I do all those Sundays? Was all those Sundays in vain? Yeah, every one of them. You was esteeming that day over his day. Every one of those days that you did was in vain. Everything that you did that day was in vain. Every day, every one of them. You was holding that day as his day. And he told us right up front, that's not his day. How do we know? It was right there in the Bible. When you were walking, you were taking it into a building with you. And it was right there, and it was laid right there in the book. In 1 Corinthians chapter 11, we have Park over here at verse 28. And why is sitting there saying that? And we need to personally think this. It says, but let a man examine himself, and so let him learn of that knowledge, including drink of that cup. Wow. A lot of us do this all wrong. We need to learn the knowledge of God, not learning this unworthy stuff to where we can cause damnation to ourselves. He that regardeth the day regardeth it unto the Creator. So if we regard that day unto the Creator, we're doing good. But then you have some who not going to regard that day. As he said, sometime he said, yeah, I also worship the Friday. Oh yeah, people, who. Hey, I worship Thursday. I worship Wednesday. He's just going down people, who. Orator at his best. Orator telling you what's going on. The book says one thing, he's translating it another way to justify why he's in there. In fact, let's check something here. Let's do a self-check on us. We're going to go to 2 Corinthians. We're going to pick it up at chapter 13. 2 Corinthians chapter 13. And let's do something. We're going to look at verse 5. It says, examine yourself, because the main thing Paul is on is talking about faith. And it says, whether ye be in the faith, prove your own selves, know ye not your own selves, now that salvation of the anointed one is in you. I wonder, except ye be reprobates. You be reprobates. I wonder. And just so we can all be on the same page, a reprobate mean being a phony or fraudulent. That's what reprobate mean. So he said, except you be a phony. But we worship on the Sunday. If we worship on Sunday, and we regard not the Sabbath day, shouldn't that still be okay? Show me in the Bible where he said, okay, well, you do this day, and if you can't do that day, just let me know, and I'm going to work it out for you. Except you be a phony. If you, same thing, you have a job, and your job won't let you off on the Sabbath day. They want you to still put in work on the Sabbath day. So we had some people who was kind of unwise on what they did. They say, well, if I got to work on a Sabbath day, I'm gonna quit. And I know some of them who quit. Some of them sent me email, hey, I had to worship on this day, so I quit. Was that wise? No, that wasn't wise. See, because you got to remember where you are. But the main thing is you want to petition that to the Most High, to where those people can change and they can get favor. The same as Daniel was in the dungeon, as well as Joseph, to where they can get favor and things can happen. But we take it upon ourselves and we quit. No, I'm not going to do it. I'm going to quit. That was not wise. These things we do constantly. Taking matters like that into our own hands and quit. When you are clearly under all these different things and you sit there, well, I'm going to sit there and I'm going to take this upon myself. I'm going to quit. I had some people tell me to ask me to write them a letter to their job to tell them that they need the Sabbath day off. Write me a letter so I can have it off the Sabbath day. And the same thing like I told them. I say, why would I sit there and write a letter for you to take off the Sabbath day? And most likely, you're going to do whatever you want to do on the Sabbath day anyway. I don't know your heart, but God do. So if you want the Sabbath day off, you talking to the wrong person. You need to talk to the Most High. He the one will put the fix in. He will give leniency. And he'll do that man who holding you to the Sabbath day, make him think different. And give you favor. If that's the truth on what you want. He'll make sure that happens. Not sitting there, I want the Sabbath day off. Can you do me a letter? Because all you got to do is do a letter, and let's say they grant it. Well, I got to do this. Oh, girl, I'm off. I'm going to go. I got to take care of this. Oh, wrong tell you, I need to go do this. Oh, I need to go take care of that. All of a sudden, and then your world changed a little bit. Hey, they want me to work back on the Sabbath day and I shouldn't be working. No, you do that between you and the Most High. He knows what your heart is. He knows what's going on. Because the main thing is as Paul said, if you saying that the Spirit of God is in you, Christ, you can petition him here, make sure things happen. If not, you need to see how you faking it. You need to see what you're doing. In fact, it tells you this in Galatians. Galatians says this. Galatians chapter 6. Actually in verse 1, it's already highlighted. It says, brethren, if a man be overtaken in a fault, ye which are spiritual, restore such, and one in the spirit of meekness. Consider thyself, lest thou also be tempted. What is it saying? If we be overtaken, and it's our own fault, and recognize your fault, and you recognize your fault, this shows you are spiritual, and you're able to restore such to another as such. This is what this is saying. Because if you being overtaken on a fault, there's something that you clearly did, and you can recognize what you did, because many people can't do that. They're going to push blame to somebody. They're going to push blame on somebody. They're never going to look at their fault. This showing you, if they can't do that, this is showing you right up front, they're not who they say they are. Because then at least thou can be tempted. At least you can be tempted. So it's saying this, and we'll look at this all together again. So when we get down here in verse 7, it's saying, for none of us liveth unto himself. This is please get what he's saying here. Remember what we just talked about? You want that Sabbath day off? See, this is just too close, probably for a lot of people, for comfort. Probably just too close. Because when you prove yourselves, when you prove yourselves, and you say that you have Christ in you, and you get the Sabbath day off, and say you work Sabbath day and he give you the Sabbath day off, you're going to prove this to yourself. Because you're going to be overtaken with your own fault. Because as soon as you do it, you don't do the Sabbath day. Because now you got all this other stuff happening. You're a reprobate. You're 100% reprobate. You're a phony. You're 100% phony. Because he says, and no man dieth to himself. So if you live into Christ, and what this is saying in its fullness. So if you live into Christ, could you not live into yourself because you can't save yourself? If you live into Christ, then you let that flesh die, because those are the fleshly things that you want. But let's look at something. We're gonna go over here, go right back in Romans, because we just got to pull some stuff back. What we don't think Paul said, but he said it already. Paul said this and said it already, but we're gonna go a little bit ahead. We're gonna look at Romans chapter 15, verse 3. It says, for even the anointed one please not himself. So none of us can live unto ourselves. He didn't please himself. He says, but as it is written, but comparing it was written, the reapproaches, you see that? You see that reapproaches? Of them that reapproached thee fell on me. All they lying, all they blasphemy fell on him. Did not they say, oh, he's the prince of the Beelzebubs? Remember that? They talked about crazy. He said, even Christ pleased not himself. But as it was written, the reapproaches of them that reapproached thee fell on Paul. They sitting there saying, Paul is this, Paul is that, Paul is it. Falling on him today. You can't make this up. But we have to sit there and understand that we have to be an account for ourselves. We have to be an account for ourselves. When we look at 1 John, and I'm going to take you to 1 John. I want to show you a piece of text that John talking about. 1 John chapter 4, we're going to look at verse 9. Look at this text here. In verse 9, it says, and this was made known, was manifest, the promise of God towards us. Because God sent his only begotten servant, which is the word, into the world, that we might live through him. Live through him. I don't know what part we're going to live through him. I'm only pausing so that I can kind of sit in. That's the only reason I'm pausing. So we live through him. I'm only pausing just so they can sit, just so they can set in. That's all. That's the only thing I'm pausing for. Nothing more, nothing less. So if we're gonna live through him, then we have to let the rudiments of this world go. And the only way we can do that is we have to let this flesh die. We have to mortify the flesh. We have to mortify the deeds of the flesh, the works of the flesh. Because we can't live unto ourselves. None of us live unto himself. We can't. That's impossible. let's put a little bit more. Let's put a little bit more. We're gonna put another little complication in here. We're gonna put another little complication in here to which we can't get out of it. Why do you keep doing that? I'm gonna put another complication in it where we can't get out of it. In Colossians chapter 2, in verse 20, it says this. It's really interesting. It is really interesting what he says here. Paul saying this. Paul speaking again. Paul says that. He says, "Wherefore, if ye be dead with Christ from the rudiments of the world." I'm only pausing for a fact. The reason why I'm saying that, and well, what Paul's saying, I'm just using Paul's words. The reason this being said, so if you are dead in Christ, then Christ has to be living. Christ lived forever. So we have to be living for Christ. Because our flesh is dead. I know we kind of get that. For some people, I don't want to. No, if you don't want to understand it, you just don't want to understand it. Meaning, if we have killed off the flesh, that Christ that is in us, as that we live through him, as it's saying, excuse me, he sent his only begotten Son into the world that we might live through him. So if we be dead in the flesh, we have to live through him now. The flesh is dead. So if his flesh is dead, now the flesh is dead. So now even the rudiment of this world don't mean anything because our flesh is dead. It says, "Why as living in the world, ye are subject to ordinances." So the same thing. So if you're living in flesh, then you're subject to the ordinances of flesh that is in this world. It's plain as day. Look at it this way. If you say, like with a man, he said, "I want to have multiple wives." I want to have multiple wives. And it says don't multiply them. So if you live into the rudiments of the world and you have them, then you are living in flesh. But when you living in the spirit, it's only one spirit, but many administrations. So if you're living in spirit, it's only one, because the other one is Satan. So you're going to live to one or the other. So if you live into one, you only have one spirit you live into. That's Christ. So it won't be no reason to have many wives. It's no reason for it. It's no reason if you commit adultery, you're committing adultery with Satan. You should be able to see that point there. These things are what happen when we look at it in the full way and get the better understanding on why he's saying it in this way. So none of us can live unto ourselves, because we not tied no more. Supposedly, we don't supposed to be tied no more to this world. We're supposed to be living through Christ. We are supposed to be living through Christ. And Colossians tells us that. Tells us clearly. If we be dead in Christ, if we be dead with Christ, then we're not tied to the rudiments of this world. I'm talking about, it's straightforward. In fact, he says a little bit more here. We're going to see something else. We're going to look at Philippians. We're going to look at Philippians in chapter 1. We're going to park over at verse 21. Actually, it's already highlighted. So the same thing what it says here. In Philippians chapter 1, verse 21, it says this. It says, "For to me, to live is Christ, and to die is gain." So for him to kill the rudiments of the flesh, to mortify the flesh, is he's killing the rudiments of this world. So the flesh dies, he gains, because he's living through Christ. It's not complex. Not complex whatsoever. So we have that make up that difference there on what we want to do. Meaning, actually, let's go down to verse 23, just to where we can look at this. It says, "For I am in a strait between two, having a desire to depart, including to be with Christ, which is far better." He's telling you a lot here. He's feeding a lot to you. See, because we're in flesh, but the spirit that we have in us, we should be living according to Christ. So he's between flesh and Christ. The desire of the flesh that's going in there, so we have to endure things to the end, because the flesh is going to fight. The flesh is going to put up the fight, and it's going to put up a good fight. Because this is why we're going to always seek the things of this world. And it's not going to die off easily. So the point is, we have to choose either the life of flesh, which is death at the end, or we go ahead and let this flesh suffer unto death, and we live unto Christ. That's our choice. That is our choice. So the same thing as we get down to verse 8, it tells us here. So we can't live unto ourselves, and no man can die unto himself. It's impossible. Because if you die unto yourself, who's going to receive you? Can't no man receive you, because you die unto yourself. It says this, it says, whether we live unto the Creator. Whether we die unto the Creator. Whether we live, therefore, or die, we are the Lord's. So that's why it's saying, no matter what, if you live unto Christ. If you die unto Christ. Because no matter what, if you do it that way, no matter what happens, you belong to the Creator. So this is clear. This is clear. This helps us out to really understand what's happening all the time as we seek the Lord. As we seek Him, we want to have a better understanding on how we need to live, and we have to mortify these bodies and live under Christ. In 1 Thessalonians chapter 5, verse 10, it says, "Who died for us, whether we wake or sleep, we should live together with Him." Exactly the point. Whether we let our body sleep or whether we awoke, we'll be together with Christ. A life for life is what we're seeking. A life for a life. And if we die according to Christ, we got to be ready to do what we need to do. In fact, in wrapping this down, and look at these couple. We're going to look at Acts chapter 21 in verse 13. Acts 21 in verse 13. Acts 21 in verse 13, it says this. It says, "Then Paul answered, What mean ye to weep, including to break my heart? For I am ready not to be bound only, but also to die at Jerusalem for the name of the Creator of salvation." He's telling you right up front what he's ready to do. So not just being bound but confined in flesh, but he's ready to be bound in Christ. So if we die, you're going to die in Jerusalem. And the way of the Creator of salvation is what he's telling you right up front. So he's telling you this in a full way to where we'll never forget it. And I'm going to show it to you to where we can always remember and why he actually made that statement, and he made this statement here. To where now it'll come to the full understanding on what he's saying. So when we look at Romans chapter 12 and verse 1, that's why he says this. I beseech thee therefore, brethren, by the mercies of God, that ye present your bodies a living sacrifice, wholly acceptable unto God, which is your reasonable service. This is why he's saying that. Because it doesn't matter. He said, I'm ready, for I am ready not to be bound only, but also to die at Jerusalem for the name, for the way of the Creator of salvation. He can tell you right up front, he's ready to do this. This is why he's telling you, I beseech thee therefore, brother, by the mercies of God, that you present your body as a living sacrifice. So if you live, you're going to live unto Christ. If you die, you're going to die unto Christ. He's clear. For no man can die unto himself, and no man can live unto himself. So if you live or die, you're going to do that according to the Creators. So hopefully, with this last part here, we get that. In Romans chapter 8, picking up at verse 3. And it says, for what the law could not do, that it was weak through the flesh, God sending his own servant in the likeness of sinful flesh, including for sin, condemned sin in the flesh. This is what he did. This is what he did, because the law could not do that. The law was not going to do that. The law that he's talking about is the same one we just went through when I showed you earlier. This cannot do that. It's an impossibility. He's telling you in Exodus chapter 20, as he goes down, he said, thou shalt not make any graven image in the likeness of anything that is above, heaven above, or that is the earth beneath, or that in the water under the earth. These laws here, the law cannot condemn itself, because this is the law of flesh. The same reason why I took you to 1 Timothy. We're going right back to visit the same thing. 1 Timothy chapter 1, and picking it up at verse 9. Knowing that the law was not made for a righteous man. So if it's not made for a righteous man, then the law cannot do, because it was weak through the flesh, because it's going to do according to things to the flesh. So God had to send his servant into flesh to condemn this sin that is in flesh. Paul is making himself clear here. So if you're going to live, you mortify that flesh. And if you live, you're going to live to the Creator. And if you die, you die unto the Creator. Because then, all of it, you belong to the Creator, no matter what. So hopefully that each and every person got this, what Paul is saying here. And we'll be picking it up at verse 9 next week. But what we're going to do, we're going to get ready to go to the back. And we're going to see, well, I'm going to give you the precepts to that. So if you want to come to the back, you can see down below, you can look in there where you can get the study notes overview. You'll see the link in there for the, to where you can come in the back. I do have a waiting room there to set for that, for the simple reason is that we do have people who come in well hours after we're done, and they'll come in there. And why they do that, I don't know. But they'll come in there. So what we do, that'll just put them in a waiting room. So we have that already in effect to where that's the reason that we do that. And then we also have, I need to set that. I need to set this one. We have Deacon Micah actually has a teaching coming this afternoon. I need to set that. It's set up another way. So give me one hot second to where I can have that set again. Because it came out. I don't know why it did that. 1 second. Let me see. And this one, let me see. That's the one I need. Okay. Let me do this again. So just bear with me one quick hot second. I just about got it now. And we'll pour this in there. Yep, right here. And we'll pour that there. So yeah, so now I have that there. And but I do want you to see if you have a chance. Deacon Micah will be teaching today on Deuteronomy 28:26. Look like 28:28. Oh, my glasses. It says, "The Lord shall smite thee with madness, including blindness, including astonishment of heart." So he will be coming up with that. And he will be doing that today on OKC, King James Bible University. And that's ran over there by Deacon Micah. And you can catch that today at 3 o'clock Pacific Time, 5 o'clock Central Time, 6 o'clock Eastern Time. So if you have a chance, make sure you go over there and check out that Deacon. He's going to be going through that. So that'll be a good thing to where we can learn from on that one there. So with that, if you guys get a chance, you can come in the back and you can get those study notes. So other than that, we'll be picking up tomorrow on our regular studies. So we're going to end it here. And as we say always, so until next time, we'll say to each and every person, until we come together again, shalom.